Hi guys, I'm Aishwarya from Legathon. Welcome back. In today's video, let's discuss why India's transgender community is opposing Transgender Persons Act 2019. The sole purpose of every social welfare legislation should be to protect the rights of the marginalized. Transgender people in India have been protesting against the new law that claims to protect their rights while taking away their fundamental right of equal citizenship under the Constitution. So, in today's video, let's analyze as to what are those provisions against which people are raising their concerns. Okay, so before we get into that, let's quickly look into what is this act all about and the highlights of this act. So, the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act 2019 was introduced as a bill in Lok Sabha on July 19, 2019 by Ministry of Law and Justice and finally got a sent of President on December 5th, 2019. It totally consists of 9 chapters which elaborate on various provisions of this act. Now let's look into some of the highlights of this act. There is a definition of transgender person wherein they have defined as to who is a transgender and to whom this act applies. Let's deal with this definition in the later stage of this video. Secondly, there is a specific provision which prohibits discrimination against transgender persons in matters relating to employment, recruitment, promotion, and other issues. There is a provision which directs appropriate government to take welfare measures in the interest of transgender persons. Fourthly, there is a provision which deals with the application of certificate of identity, and this certificate of identity confers rights and is a proof of recognition of every transgender. Finally, there is a provision to constitute National Council for Transgender Person to perform various functions and to monitor and evaluate policies and programs in the interest of transgender persons. Now that we have understood what is this act all about and the important provisions of this act, let's move on to the most important topic in this video, that is why is this act being opposed by people, mainly by transgender community. First opposition is regarding the definition of transgender. Transgender person has been defined as a person whose gender does not match with the gender assigned to that person at birth. So this definition also includes trans man, trans women and persons with intersex variation. Activists have pointed out that it is inappropriate to include intersex community in the definition of transgender person, as not all intersex people identify themselves as trans people. It dilutes their rights. This means that this act is mixing sex and gender and thus diminishing its capacity to understand the needs of the transgender. The second opposition to this act is about the certificate of identity. Well, this is the most problematic provision in this entire act and there's a huge public outrage against this provision. First, let me explain this provision in simple terms. So, according to this provision, transgender person can make an application for certificate of identity to district magistrate. This certificate of identity gives transgender person certain rights and this is the proof of the recognition. They are recognized by this certificate. So this is the first part of the provision. Coming to the second part, after issuance of such certificate, if that transgender person undergoes surgery to change the gender as male or as female, then again an application has to be made for a revised certificate. So basically there are two certificates, that is certificate of identity and second is revised certificate. This whole process gives so much power to the government officials that they can actually decide as to whom should this certificate can be issued. It also pushes people into procedure that they might not want to undergo. Also, this provision goes against the Supreme Court judgment in Nalsa versus Union of India, where it was ruled that transgender persons' right to decide their self identified gender should be recognized by state and federal authorities. Court also made it clear that any insistence for sex reassignment for one's gender is immoral and illegal. So, this and also the act is silent on whether sex reassignment surgery would be provided free of cost or at subsidized rate. So, this whole provision may violate right to privacy under Article 21 of Indian Constitution. Third important concern regarding this act is that there is insufficient penalty for the crimes committed against a transgender person. Penalty for sexual abuse of a transgender person is just 6 months to 2 years, whereas it is a life imprisonment for raping a woman. If a woman is raped, then the punishment is lifetime. But if a transgender is sexually abused, then it is just 6 months to 2 years. Endangering of transgender person's life is punishable for maximum of just 2 years. So the entire community has raised concern that crime against them are considered and penalized as a petty offense. Also, act makes sexual abuse punishable, but the act does not define the term sexual abuse, which makes it complicated for transgender person to report such crimes. So, the fourth important opposition against this act is that it does not provide for reservation in education and employment of transgender person. This goes against the judgment of Nalsa versus Union of India, which had clearly stated that state must take measures to treat them as socially and educationally backward class and extend all kinds of reservation. So these were some of the important concerns regarding this act. There are also few other concerns regarding this act, such as the act prohibits discrimination but has not explicitly defined what constitute discrimination. That is, there is no definition of discrimination in this act. Also, the act does not specify any civil rights of the transgender person, such as marriage, adoption, property rights, partnership rights. It is not at all mentioned. So, guys, in my concluding remarks, all I want to say is that transgender people in India have lived oppressed life for a really long time. It's time that we support them in their struggle for identity, equality, and dignity. Trying to achieve their dreams in a country where people routinely mock them, harass them, make their dreams even more difficult to achieve. So let's not make it even more hard for them to survive in this country. I would like to conclude this video by famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi, which is quite apt on the struggle of trans people in Indian society. That is, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching this video. Hit like button if you like this video and subscribe if you aren't subscriber to this channel, and hit bell icon to receive more notifications of upcoming videos.